Breaking news on your screen. Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, spoke on the phone with the Brazilian president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. The two leaders exchanged views on current international issues, focusing on the situation in Venezuela.
Out of fear and desperation, the Brazilian president called Vladimir Putin for support to counter United States advances in South America. Donald Trump's recent statements reinforcing that he will intensify the crackdown on drug trafficking throughout the continent increase the pressure on the Brazilian government, which now finds itself at risk of being included in the route of operations of the Southern Command, which remains mobilized in the Caribbean Sea even after the capture of the Venezuelan dictator Nicolás Maduro Amem. According to information released by the Russian government, the Brazilian president and Vladimir Putin highlighted points of convergence between Russia and Brazil on defending state sovereignty and the interests of the Bolivarian Republic, which continues to govern Venezuela.
If they cause trouble with those people, they're tough.
But conveniently, they stopped mentioning Ukraine's sovereignty, which was ignored and invaded by Russia itself. In this video, we will analyze whether Putin can really offer any kind of support to the Brazilian president, given the offensives announced by the United States government against the narco-terrorists operating on the continent. Welcome to life in the barracks. The possibility of the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa countries creating a joint military force has once again gained prominence on the international stage after the recent United States offensives in Venezuela. Naval exercises by China, Russia, South Africa, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates have sparked global concern over the risk of major armed conflicts. This shows that military cooperation between nations outside the Western sphere is intensifying and could alter the global geopolitical balance. Brazil, while part of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, isn't yet involved in these joint maneuvers. But pressures from Moscow and Beijing, led by Putin and Xi Jinping, increase the chance of a change in stance. With the current Brazilian president showing ideological alignment with these leaders, there is increasing expectation that the Brazilian armed forces will need to join future bloc military exercises. This could lead to a significant rupture in the historic partnership with the United States and cause major diplomatic tensions. The Brazilian president shows dissatisfaction with the arrest of Nicolás Maduro. For this reason, he is seeking alternatives to try to get the dictator out of American custody, and, at the same time, to prevent the United States from expanding its influence over Venezuelan politics, which has historically been marked by socialism. The situation is more delicate given Venezuela's unpaid debt to Brazil, which has exceeded 7 years and now totals over 10 billion reais. This default is directly linked to credit operations for Brazilian exports. Many of them were intended for infrastructure projects in Venezuelan territory, such as subways, shipyards, and steel mills, which were never completed, maintaining the local population in poverty and repression.
Well, another topic here, also a bit about the international scenario. Venezuela's debt to Brazil soared to $1.7 billion in 2025. Now, in the first 3 months of this year, the debt related to financing for exports by Brazilian companies increased by $53 million. The amount, which is equivalent to more than 10 billion reais, keeps growing while bilateral negotiations remain stalled.
The United States is intensifying efforts against regional drug trafficking, a move that should be backed by governments dedicated to continental security. Paraguay, for example, signed a cooperation agreement that allows military personnel and CIA agents to operate in its territory, strengthening the fight against transnational crime. This kind of initiative shows how it is possible to enhance regional protection against illegal activities, something that Brazil could also adopt. However, instead of prioritizing security measures and the fight against organized crime, the current government focuses its efforts on defending Maduro and supporting the Chavista regime, which could further undermine the country's international credibility.
This is bad for both Venezuela and Brazil.
Maduro spoke about the breaking of diplomatic relations by then-President Jair Bolsonaro in 2019.
Suddenly from Brazil, they closed all the doors and all the windows, even though we are neighboring countries, even though we care for each other as peoples.
And he said that Venezuela is ready to welcome Brazilian business people.
Oh, Luis Inácio. Well, do you remember that meeting? He got a harsh response and said, on top of everything, now we're going to get the money he owes us. We're going to start negotiations and he's going to start paying again. Very well. It went from 1.2 to 1.7. The debt already exceeds 10 billion reais. Do you remember how this was incurred, guys?
So I didn't offend at any moment. I have no prejudice of any kind, none at all. I have an established opinion. To lead a country, to have under your command the direction of a continental nation like Brazil, it's essential to be prepared. There is no prejudice about that. And the candidate here present, who will have the chance to defend himself, does not have an education. And I said that to him with respect. I didn't attack him. The amount of information, the body of knowledge that is necessary to lead the nation's destiny.
When the Brazilian president turns to Russia for support against possible United States offensives against the Chavista regime, but he completely ignores the invasion of Ukraine, which has already resulted in hundreds of thousands of deaths. It's clear how ideology overrides reason. Russia, which attacked Ukraine without having suffered any prior aggression, is now facing enormous political, financial, and human strain. Despite trying to show strength on the battlefield, Russia attacked Ukraine. In this scenario, it is unlikely that Moscow has any real ability to contain or influence American actions in countries in the Americas where cartels operate freely. Just days before the United States offensive, Putin ordered all Russian diplomats to leave Venezuela. This suggests that Moscow was warned about the operation, or that its intelligence sector identified clear signs of military movement. This gesture reveals that, even with the closeness between Maduro and the Kremlin, the alliance was not enough to prevent his capture. The situation reveals the limits of Russian influence in the region and how ideological dependence can further weaken Brazil's government in response to global pressures. The closer relationship between the current Brazilian president and Vladimir Putin highlights an increasing distance from Washington. This could serve as justification for Donald Trump's administration to intensify pressure on countries in the Americas that do not show a willingness to effectively combat international trafficking.
Every time we talk about fighting drugs, it might actually be easier for us to deal with our own addicts internally. The users are responsible for the traffickers, who are also victims of the users.
This stance, besides reinforcing Russian influence on the continent, creates an environment of diplomatic tension that can have direct effects on regional security, especially in strategic areas like Brazil's northern border. Within this international dynamic, the possibility of new military actions by the United States is growing, both in Venezuela and around the Brazilian coast. aiming to fight transnational drug trafficking. This scenario puts Brazil in front of a delicate choice. Should it accept American cooperation to strengthen the fight against criminal organizations, or insist on a stance of total autonomy, facing and dealing with a problem that is already completely out of control on its own? Should Brazil accept help from the United States or go it alone in this battle? Leave your opinion here in the comments and join the debate. Within this context, Vida No Cuartel expands its platform for analysis and debate, providing key information to those interested in geopolitics and regional security. And for 2026, we are opening new opportunities for commercial partnerships. If you have a business or product and want to increase your visibility by appearing here in the channel's videos, get in touch through the email available in the description and in the pinned comment, and expand your brand's reach to a qualified, engaged audience present throughout Brazil. Vida No Cuartel keeps you updated on all military news. Leave your like, subscribe, and watch one of the videos appearing on your screen. Forward, fighters, until next time.